Hi, my name is Christine Nandy, and I'm going to teach you how to make epoxy resin coasters. I like to say is one man's junk is another man's treasure. This is a piece of junk wood that we're going to turn into a coaster. Okay, so some of the basic tools and equipment we're going to need to get started is tape, a straight edge, a ruler, tape measure, stir sticks, plastic cups, a scale, your epoxy, your pigment, color pigment, sandpaper, and I use 80 grit and 120, as well as 1,000. Mineral oil, your lacquer, and some cloth or paper towels. And don't forget, we need our rubber gloves and our safety glasses. Now we are going to be using a router and a planer. Now I've already prepped most of our wood for this project, and I'm just going to walk you through it. My final measurement is going to be 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 square. To start off, what we want to do is make sure that our edges are straight and our ends are straight, so we have it squared. I did this by running it through the table saw. What we're going to do is run it through the router to make our rivers. And you can do this any way you want. You can use chisels, you can use a grinder, sander, however you feel. I used a router. I decided to just do straight rivers. This one is a 1/2 inch, and this one's a 1/4 inch. Run it through your router, make your rivers, and then what you're going to do is go ahead and sand it again. And I used 80 grit and then 120 grit. And just make sure it's ready, smooth, and then we're going to get ready to pour. So what we want to do next is add our tape. I did one side already to show you. We want it flush and sealed. So we're going to do the other side. There's so many different types of epoxies out there. I like to use the clear epoxy, but always read the instructions on the back. Important things is your mixture, your ratios, and your room temperature. So we're mixing 2 colors. We're going to get one for the big river, one for the little river. So our first river, we're going to do a 1 ounce to 1 ounce ratio. Adding our pigment and just clean it up. You want to make sure you keep your epoxy moving, scraping your sides, folding it, mix it really well. Okay. One of the things I like to do is sort of let it sit for about 5 minutes and let it settle, and then you can stir it again and get all of the clumps that are remaining out. And then when you're ready to pour, I personally like to start from one end and slowly pour, working my way in layers. Green's going to go in the big river. Now at this point, it's going to take 12 to 24 hours to actually set and firm up. That could be dependent upon your room temperature and your air quality. So what I've done is made another board that we can get started on while that one sets up. Let's move that one out of the way. So here's our finished product after it's dried. You can see I've spilt on the edges. That's okay. Don't worry about that. At this point, we're going to send it through the planer. Clean up the top, clean up the bottom, and we're going to be ready to sand after that. So now what we're going to do is just give it a quick sand, and I'm using 80 grit to start. This is going to take off some of our rough edges. Now we're going to take our 1,000 grit and just give it a quick buff, focusing more on the epoxy. At this point, you're going to get your sides done, and I personally like to do mine still is a full board. Cut this edge, and then we'll cut this edge. Cut them down the size for each coaster, and then finish off our 2 edges on the router. So now that all 4 sides is routed out, we have our edge. We're going to sand it down, clean it up with a 120 grit sandpaper. Okay, so sanded it down nice and smooth. We're going to wipe it, make sure we get all the dust particles off. And get out a rag. We're going to wipe it down with mineral oil, soften it, and it's going to bring out the colors of the epoxy, bring out the grains, and I like to do all of it, as you can see. Make sure you get all the cracks, crevices. You could do underneath, you don't have to. I just like the wet look, so I'm going to do the bottom. And I'm just going to use a spray urethane. You always want to make sure you use it in a well-ventilated area. Now we'll wait and keep adding our layers until we're satisfied. And pretty much once that's all done and it's dry, that's your finished product.